Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. The informal meeting of the Richmond City Council will now come to order. Madam Clerk, if you would provide the chamber emergency evacuation announcement, followed by the roll call and then the docket review.
Upon activation of the emergency alarm signal, all persons should immediately exit the building. Please use the exits to the left or right front of the council chamber or the east or west stairwell outside the rear doors of the chamber. Do not use elevators or escalators. After exiting the building, proceed down 9th Street and enter the assembly area located in the former public safety building parking lot. Able persons should assist visually and hearing impaired visitors with exiting the building. And Madam President, for the record, all members are in attendance this evening with the exception of Councilor Gibson and Councilor Lynch. You do have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's proceed with the docket review.
Starting with the consent agenda, item number 1, ordinance 2025-014, Planning Commission recommended a continuance, so this item is to be continued to the November 10th council meeting. Items 2 and 3, ordinance 2025-079 and 2025-081. Both papers were amended at the September 22nd council meeting. Both are being retained on this evening's consent agenda. Item 4, ordinance 2025-113. This paper was amended also at the September 22nd council meeting. However, this paper is to be continued to the November 10th meeting per a request. Item 5, ordinance 2025-150, Planning Commission recommended approval with an amendment. However, this paper is only going to be continued to the November 10th meeting, awaiting that amendment. Item 6, ordinance 2025-174, Planning Commission recommended approval with an amendment, and this paper is scheduled to be amended later this evening and then continue to the November 10th council meeting. Item 7, ordinance 2025-209, Governmental Operations Standing Committee recommended a continuance, so this item is to be continued until November the 10th. Items 8 and 9, ordinance 2025-210 and 211, Governmental Operations Standing Committee recommended a continuance. However, both items are to be amended later this evening and then continued to the November 10th council meeting. Items 10 and 11, ordinance 2025-212 and 213, Planning Commission recommended approval. Item 12, ordinance 2025-214, Planning Commission recommended approval with an amendment. So this paper is scheduled to be amended later this evening and then continue to the November 10th council meeting. Item 13, ordinance 2025-215, Planning Commission recommended a continuance. So this item is to be continued to the November 10th council meeting. Items 14 through 18, ordinance 2025-216, 217, 218, 219, and 220, Planning Commission recommended approval. Item 19, ordinance 2025-221, Public Safety Standing Committee recommended approval. Item 20, ordinance 2025-222, Planning Commission recommended a continuance to its November 25th council meeting. However, at the committee chair's request, this item will be continued to the committee to its committee meeting in October, on October the 28th instead, and then continue to the November 10th council meeting. So if that is the consensus of council, that item will be continued to the October 28th Public Safety Standing Committee, and then considered at the November 10th council meeting.
This is the towing paper, number ordinance 20.
Yes, item number 20.
Madam Clerk, we don't need a vote for that, just consensus, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
All right, so I believe everybody, there is a consensus, so that item will be now changed and continue to the October 28th Public Safety Standing Committee and continue to the November 10th council meeting. Item 21, ordinance 2025-223, Governmental Operations Standing Committee recommended approval. Item 22, ordinance 2025-224, Education and Human Services Standing Committee recommended approval. Item 23, ordinance 2025-226, at the October 6th special meeting of council, this paper was referred to tonight's meeting. It is currently being retained on this evening's consent agenda. Item 24, Resolution 2025-R041, Education and Human Services Standing Committee recommended a continuance, so this item is to be continued to the December 8th council meeting. On the regular agenda, we have item 25, ordinance 2025-161. This paper is scheduled to be amended later this evening and then continued to the November 10th council meeting. And it is understood that this paper will not be referred back to the Land Use, Housing, and Transportation Standing Committee. Items 26 through 30, ordinance 2025-184, 185, 186, 190, and 191, Land Use, Housing, and Transportation Standing Committee recommended approval. All are requests for bids. However, item number 20, and will be on this evening's regular agenda. However, item number 29 will be continued to the November 10th council meeting awaiting a bid. Item 30, ordinance 2025-191, I'm sorry, move on to the next one. Item 31, ordinance 2025-207 and 208. For the 207, Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee recommended approval. That item is on this evening's regular agenda. And item 32, 2025-208, Finance forward this item with no recommendation and is currently being retained on this evening's regular agenda as well. And Madam President, that concludes the docket.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, we will proceed with,
Madam President, there is a, Ms.
okay,
Gibson.
hold on 1 second. I still have a little tech thing. Let me get that straight. See the screen. Thank you. Minor tech problem. Councilmember Gibson?
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted to flag that I would like to move to continue the two tax papers, and I apologize, I don't remember the numbers of those ordinances off the top of my head. I'm wondering if I should do that now or if I should hold and make that motion during the formal discussion.
Yes, Ms. Gibson, please proceed.
Okay. So I would like to move to continue items, and I'm sorry, I'm looking it up.
That would be item 31 and 32.
Okay, thank you. Item 31 and 32 pertaining to the property tax rate, and to move those items to our November meeting, allowing time for the city to provide the surplus data for the fiscal year 2025.
Just for me, a point of clarification in terms of the surplus data. I think we received an email, correct? In response to that inquiry, that information would not be available until after the time that we would have needed to decision. Is that correct? Yes, Ms. Gibson.
Thank you,
Madam-
Madam President. Yes, that I am aware. The body is making a decision regarding setting the property tax rate considerably earlier than the body has done in years prior. The deadline to adopt the property tax rate is, I believe, 45 days before the end of the year when the rate would take place. So that would be in November. So as I understand it, I was not on the body at that time, but it's my understanding that the body has adopted the property rate in November for the past decade or so. And I also understand that I believe last year, prior to my start of my term, the body approved a paper that extended the deadline to receive the surplus data, essentially after making that choice in November. And so I do question the rationale for that decision. But that's neither here nor there, although the requirement is not established that we have to receive the information. It certainly behooves us to have that information so that we can be fully informed as we make a decision that has sizable financial impact. And look, I would very much like to be able to make the argument to secure the funding. If the argument is there, at the end of the day, we need to be able to ensure that we are covering the cost, the budget that we've adopted. But without having the understanding about the surplus, I'm just not sure how we're able to do that. And so my hope is that the ask has been made before. And my hope is that the administration would provide the information earlier, as it has done in years prior. And just for clarity, it is my intention to look at an ordinance to give us this document, this information earlier, although it would not be mandated this year, but in subsequent years, if the body agrees to have the information sooner. Again, I do not know why we would not want to have the information sooner, but we can have that discussion when that new paper comes forward. But I do think that it is critical to have the numbers as we are making a decision, again, that has sizable financial impact. And look, just to be clear, I definitely, I can always make the argument for additional monies for services, but I struggle making the argument for additional funding that's essentially going to go into a reserve and may not see the light of day. So I don't want to boost a surplus unless we, because I don't want to do that just because I didn't have information that really we need to have. So that's my rationale. I will pause and allow whether this motion on the table is seconded or not, and if not, we can continue.
I would just like to ask, I hear, and maybe I believe in terms of protocol, there would have to be second and then room for discussion. So I'm looking at legal here, want to not be in violation of, yes? Okay. Is there a second? Seeing none, the motion does
That
not move
motion
forward.
fails. Yeah, that motion fails for lack of a second.
Thank you. Okay.
And Madam President, at this time, would you like to take up the issue regarding the time limit for public hearings this evening for the tax rate papers?
The time limit according to our guidelines is 5 minutes for each member. And so what I want to make sure of is each member has an opportunity. So we'll do 5 and make sure everyone is heard from. Then we can do another round if desired, so that everybody. Right, I'm talking, this is relative to us. Let me be clear. This is relative to the members because we will all, I am sure, want to comment on the tax papers. And so based on our policies, it is 5 minutes. It says total, but I suspect we all, again, may have more than 5 minutes worth of discussion. So we'll do each person And then I'll make sure to come back if there are additional questions so that everyone has an opportunity. Depending on the number of citizens desirous of speaking in the past, we have, and I anticipate we will have a large number. If not, we won't change, but if from 3, but if so, we typically move to 2 minutes. Okay? Questions?
I would just like to make a motion. Are we talking about the regular agenda at this point too? Right? I would
Yeah, it
like to
is
make a
for
motion
our
around
entire-
the schedule of the regular agenda so that, No.
It would be for comment period, for regular or consent.
no, I know. I'm saying that I would like to make a motion to bring up the taxpayers as the first item on the regular agenda, knowing
Absolutely.
that there's going to be a lot of public
Yeah,
comment.
we were intending to do
Okay.
that. Thank you. That just confirms the desire. Yes. Councilwoman Trammell?
Madam President, can you explain what you said earlier about when Kenya was trying to bring the paper for a vote? You said something about there wasn't enough time or days, something or.
I mean, at the end, so
How does
my
that work?
initial comment was that based on the response we'd received from the administration, we would not have the response that Ms. Gibson was wanting, that we're all wanting to hear in terms of surplus until after the time we would have needed to vote. But then we went on to Councilmember Gibson's motion, which didn't get a second, so it didn't carry, so the papers are before us this evening.
So in other words, we got to give proper notice before we can continue, like it doesn't happen, no?
No, it did not carry. There was not a motion to continue. There was not a second, excuse me, to continue.
Okay,
Okay.
and now, because I know a lot of people coming down here tonight, so what we're going to
Right,
do.
they will speak to it and they'll be the first papers up on the regular agenda.
All right, thank you, thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Next up, we will have a presentation, the Office of Community Wealth Building's Annual Impact Report.
And I think that's our mayor, Mayor
That's
Abdullah.
correct.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, President Newbill, Vice President Jordan, members of council. Excited to be here with you all to present our annual report on poverty reduction. As some of you know, over a decade ago, Mayor Jones at the time convened an anti-poverty commission, which brought together 49 different members to develop a comprehensive plan to tackle the city's poverty crisis. And then a few years after the work of that anti-poverty commission, council decided that this was such an important topic for the city that they actually passed an ordinance requiring the mayor to come before you all once a year to report on the city's progress towards this goal. One of the outputs of the Anti-Poverty Commission, and really thanks in large part to the leadership of Councilwoman Robertson, was the formation of the Office of Community Wealth Building, which has been in existence since 2014 and anchors much of our specific anti-poverty work here in the city. That said, our anti-poverty work happens across the entire organization, right? Lots of different departments from DSS to housing to economic development, and obviously the addition of so many nonprofits and philanthropic sector working to reduce poverty across the region. And so increasingly what we'll see is that the role of OCWB has to evolve to do more collective impact work, to do more systems work across that landscape. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. So today, my report will really provide broad context about our progress addressing poverty in Richmond. We'll talk specifically about OCWB's contributions to that, and then we'll frame our comprehensive approach to poverty reduction moving forward. So at that time, You want me to just call next slide? I'm happy to do that. Okay. So at that time, the Anti-Poverty Commission really identified three major goals using a baseline of 2015 data. And those goals were to reduce the number of people living in poverty in the city by 40% by 2030, to reduce the number of children living in poverty by 50% by 2030, and then to decrease the city's poverty rate overall to below 15%. Next slide. And from, what, am I doing it? It's the delay. I'm going to try this. Okay. Oh, great. All right, and so the baseline numbers in 2015 that we were working off of were 51,800 people living in poverty, 15,000 children living in poverty, and an overall poverty rate in the city of over 25%. And you can see why this came to such a crisis when 1 out of every 4 Richmonders was living below the federal poverty limit. And as of the most complete census data we have, which is 2023, I want to report where we are now, which is about 41,000 people living in poverty, representing a 21% decrease. 11,000 children living in poverty, so a 27% decrease, and then an overall decrease in the poverty rate from 25.5% to 18.8%. So while these were incredibly ambitious goals, we're actually on track to achieve many of them. And so I want to talk a little bit about what recognition that has received and what has contributed to that. So earlier this year, Governing Magazine covered us, how one city cut its poverty rate by more than a third, and talked about really the Office of Community Wealth Building and the work that they've anchored to reduce poverty here in Richmond. Just a couple of months ago, the Philadelphia Citizen did a report in their series entitled Ideas We Should Steal, and really used the Office of Community Wealth Building and Richmond's story as an idea worth stealing. And so how did we get here, right? There's a lot of different factors that have led to such an incredible decrease in the number of people living in poverty. The first is that we've had sustained population growth, right? We as a city are probably 20,000 or so people larger than we were back in 2015. And so as that denominator gets bigger, that obviously brings the rate down. We've also seen some geographic mobility during that time where people have left the city for different reasons, right? For some people, that's a choice. They, because of schools or because of work or because of other opportunities, choose to go live out in the counties or elsewhere altogether. And for some people, that's not a choice. And that's obviously concerning when the costs of living in the city have gotten to a point where they can no longer stay in their homes. But there are a lot of data to show that isn't the primary driver, right? We have seen a decrease in poverty rates, not just here in the city, but really across the entire region. Every locality has also experienced a decrease in folks living in poverty, although not quite to the degree that we have. And I think that's due in many cases to other factors, like the fact that our economy has done significantly better over the last decade. We have seen sustained increases in wage growth. We have made incredible investments in schools. And so the number of schools that are being accredited and the number of people that are graduating from schools, the partnerships with community colleges and other training programs, and a real investment in vocational education, all of these things have led to increased wages, increased salaries, and people moving towards a living wage. I want to speak specifically about OCWB's contributions here, because while this has been a citywide effort, OCWB has definitely, through its programming, through its efforts, played a large part in some of this movement. So over the period since OCWB's inception in 2014, they have been responsible for 2,420 job placements. And I want to bring particular note to the average wages here, right? We went from just below $10 an hour in FY16 to an average wage of almost $20 an hour in FY25. During that same period of time, 110 individuals were supported to receive their high school diploma through alternative education through something called the Dream Academy. I've had 379 participants in the Richmond Adult Technical Center and over 1,100 individuals who have been trained through the Community College Workforce Alliance, doing things like their CDL license or nurse aide certification or pharmacy tech. And so really, again, through partnership and through connecting and tracking people to job opportunities that exist here in the Richmond region, we've really seen significant movement towards a living wage. Our second goal here, reducing the number of children by living in poverty by 50%, really pushed OCWB to focus on its youth programming. And so you all may remember the inception of the Mayor's Youth Academy, which is recently rebranded as Youth Works RVA. But over the last few years, since 2019, when this really got kicked off, 2,100 summer work experiences, including 703 this summer, which is the largest cohort that we've had in the program's history. Now, these are paid jobs for high school students and students right out of high school. Last year, we were awarded a national award, Program of the Year from the National Association of the Workforce Development Professionals. One of the other outcomes is, in addition to just how many kids are working in the or are employed through Youth Works RVA, is actually this outcome of opportunity youth. And so that is defined as kids ages 16 to 19 who are neither in school nor are they employed. And so back at that baseline in 2015, that was 12% of the youth in Richmond were neither employed or not in school. And so what we've seen in our most recent data is that has been cut more than in half, down to 5.3% of youth that are not employed or not in school. I want to share one story, Davion Washington, who joined Youth Works RVA in 2020. And she also took advantage of a number of other programs that Youth Engagement Services were offering, like the Youth Empowerment Program. She was part of our Youth Civic Leadership cohort, worked on issues of gun violence. She was recognized by her peers as a youth navigator, and she later interned with the mayor's office and was actually a featured speaker at the 10th anniversary celebration of the Office of Community Wealth Building. Davion is a proud graduate of Richmond Public Schools. She went to the community high school. And now she is on a full ride at Howard University, where she is pre-med and on track to graduate with a bachelor's degree in biology, and really looking forward to her future in the profession. OCWB is known for Mayor's Youth Academy, Youth Works RVA, certainly its workforce development, but there are 8 core buckets of programming that OCWB engages in. And so those are outlined here. Obviously, the workforce stuff, the youth-focused, in addition to the summer programming of Youth Works RVA, also providing apprenticeships, developing soft skills through trainings, helping high school students develop leadership skills through youth councils, wealth building programming for residents who need support with money management or with credit. We partner with the Office of Minority Business Development to do entrepreneurship training for nonprofits and businesses. OCWB also administers our Guaranteed Income Program, the Richmond Resilience Initiative, that provides $500 a month for 2 years to families that make too much money to receive a number of public benefits. But as we all know, after the benefits cliff, there's still too many families who don't have enough to make ends meet. And so this guaranteed benefit program really helps smooth out that benefit cliff. And that last bucket of social impact, it is incredibly important to OCWB and to all of us at the city that our programs and our efforts are continually informed by residents with lived experience. And so the social impact team is out tabling at events, doing presentations, going door to door and engaging residents who may benefit from our services to make sure that there's a constant feedback loop, constant continuous quality improvement based on real feedback from residents. Over fiscal year 25, here's just a snapshot of some of these outcomes across these 8 buckets. This past year, 90 individuals into new jobs. And as I said, the average wages of those job placements was $19.46 an hour. 703 participants in YouthWorks RVA working at 114 different employers, earning a total of $1.1 million in wages. And the feedback we got from their employers is that 65% of those employers would hire their intern. And so that's really great news. Obviously, we want to see that number grow, and I suspect we will over time. But I think really positive feedback from employers who about their experiences, and great feedback from the youth who are using these summer internships as jumping off points for future employment. We also provided financial empowerment classes to 123 participants, homeownership education to 262, and 20 people who participated in an entrepreneurship class. You can see that OCWB is rigorously measuring the impact of their work through all of these individual programs, and we're really proud of the work that they are doing. So let's talk about the future of OCWB, because as I talked about, this work of poverty reduction across the city is much bigger than just what the Office of Community Wealth Building does. And you who know me know that I've really been committed to this work of addressing and supporting communities in poverty for much of my career, and certainly coming into this role, that will continue. We need to expand the work of poverty reduction in our city, and I think that requires an evolution in our approach as the context in Richmond continues to change, right? We have growing population, we have a significantly rapidly changing labor markets. And that's good in many ways, right? We're seeing more higher paying jobs come to the region. Our unemployment rate is way lower than it was back when OCWB started. We were about 11% here in the city. Now the unemployment rate sits under 4%. But there are also things that make the calculations harder, right? Like our increasing housing costs. We know that the median cost of housing has more than doubled during that time. We're seeing changes in federal funding that are impacting our local economy, and we're seeing changing demographics of the population that actually makes up our city, both racially and socioeconomically, but also in terms of language proficiency. And so we are going to have to evolve our approach to how do we find and identify folks who are living in poverty, and then how do we also build or start to think about economic mobility in regional terms, right? Because we should not see it as a failure if we come alongside one of our residents, support them, train them, and then they choose to go and live in a neighboring county, right? We really need to think more broadly as a region about how we are serving this population and how we're tracking data for this population. And I think RVA Rising is one good example of a regional effort that we are plugged into that is starting to bring that sense of regional identity and shared outcomes to the work that we're doing. So how does this changing dynamic impact the path forward for us? I think there are really 6 main approaches to the way that we are thinking about this work. The first is in addressing the housing issue, right? And I would sort of put a particular asterisk on public housing redevelopment as a core focus for our housing affordability plan moving forward. It's also why we use every tool that we can, the code refresh, as an opportunity to produce more housing units and bring the overall cost of housing down. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund is a way to help builders and close their capital stacks to ensure some degree of affordability. The performance grants and so many other programs that we collectively have invested money in to create more affordable units. The second bucket is really around workforce development. And you'll see, the shift that we have made over time, while we have helped 2,400 people get placed in jobs over the last decade or so, that number in recent years is starting to get smaller because as we know, we need to get people to a higher number, a higher threshold for a living wage. That takes more supports, more wraparounds, more certification, more intensive support to help people get to that threshold. And so focus on fewer people with more intensive supports, and then better alignment to the regional workforce opportunities through RVA Rising. The third bucket is really around policy development. And this is something that the Office of Community Wealth Building has really looked at. What is its role in systems change? And so they are starting the work to identify policies, especially city government policies, in conjunction with our office that would really enhance economic inclusion across Richmond. And then they'll take those specific policies and will prioritize those based on what has the greatest impact, what's the most feasible to accomplish, and then what's not already happening through the work of others. And here are kind of a few examples of the role that OCWB would play in doing a policy audit of our policies, and then thinking about how do we make sure that community voice is incorporated, and how do we, look at things like procurement as a way that could support community reinvestment. The fourth and fifth icons on here represent collective impact and partnership and coordination, because increasingly, as the number of entities that are playing a role in poverty reduction gets bigger and bigger, and here's just a snapshot of what that looks like in the city, right? So many of our agencies are supporting the same population, and while they are taking different approaches and focusing on different outcomes, they're touching the same Richmond families. And so there is a need for there to be a backbone entity that's helping coordinate efforts of certainly our city organization, but also all of the other nonprofits and players in this kind of work. And so much of my work in my career, doing kind of the collective impact and thinking about how to solve really complicated problems, there's always a need for more coordination, more communication across entities. And I think really a huge opportunity to align the focus of our various agencies more effectively around the residents that we're supporting. And so in the coming year, OCWB is really looking to figure out how do we coordinate those efforts across these offices as they relate to wealth building. So some examples might be matching residents that are coming through our workforce programming in OCWB to the housing opportunities that are being created by the Department of Housing and Community Development, or ensuring that those individuals who are seeking employment are also able to get childcare through the Early Childhood Trust Fund, or supporting the workforce efforts of specific economic development projects that we're working on, like the Diamond District, and making sure that our training is aligned to the needs that we're seeing in those economic development efforts. So we've started on those handful of ideas that I've just shared, but there's always more that can be done to make these experiences really seamless for the residents who we're serving. Other ways that OCWB will play a backbone kind of coordinating entity, certainly city departments, but also making sure that we're aligning around outcomes and producing the data that actually helps us get to action, creating data dashboards that agencies and other area nonprofits can use to understand specific needs, partnering like RVA Rising is really with specific job tracks, right? We know that construction is booming and that there are specific trades that are needed. And so finding ways to partner with labor unions and with construction companies to really channel OCWB participants and other people who touch our system to those job opportunities. And the last icon on here is the MAP, the Mayoral Action Plan, which we'll roll out tomorrow. But we are very committed to holding ourselves accountable to real outcomes. And so OCWB has just completed a comprehensive logic model for each of the programs that it administers. And here's one example for YouthWorks RVA of a logic model that looks at inputs, outputs, outcomes, and impact. And in that last category, you see real metrics, the number of opportunity youth in the city as an example, that will then be a part of our mayoral action plan, and that we will report out on a regular basis, and that ultimately we hold ourselves accountable to for impact. So I am really excited about the future of OCWB, the future of all of this coordinated work that we are doing as a city to reduce poverty in Richmond. Just last Friday, I was at this graduation event, which represents a partnership between the Office of Community Wealth Building, a private sector construction company, Carrilla Construction Services, and LIUNA, our construction laborers union. And this partnership designed designed a training program that allowed people to get trained in some hard skills, to come into the union where they could get benefits for healthcare, fair pay, work towards a retirement, and then immediately get paired with active construction projects that are happening here in Richmond. And so many of these folks were working on the Diamond District or other regional construction projects. And to hear them, the participants in this program talk about their experience, the camaraderie, the investment that the city and Carrilla Construction and the union made in them, and then know that the next day they are going out to work in living wage jobs is incredibly exciting, and I think really sets the template for the kind of work that increasingly we're going to be doing as a city. This work of community wealth building has to be ours to share. And as you all know, I'm really invested in leading these efforts from the role of the mayor. We have embedded them in our 7 pillars, particularly a thriving economy where nobody gets left behind. But the city's work in poverty reduction is going to be much further reaching than just the outputs of OCWB. The report that you all will get shortly is as it has in recent years, will focus on kind of OCWB as a department, and we didn't have much time to sort of change that. But in future years, we will take a much more comprehensive look at what all of our departments are doing and how they're contributing collectively to the reduction of poverty in our city. And so we'll look forward to that lens in future years. So many of you have been part of councils that have invested in the Office of Community Wealth Building and so many other departments. And as you've seen, there's still a lot more to do. And so I just want to both thank you and invite you to the continued work, because I really believe that reduction of poverty is core to our shared mission as the leaders of the city. And I think you hopefully have seen the really profound impacts of the things that our investments are making for the people of Richmond. So thank you so much.
Mayor, I want to, and I'm going to certainly have council members for comment. I want to say congratulations and thank you for work extraordinarily well done. I appreciate your recognition of our council colleague who was very much involved on the front end, Councilwoman Robertson. And I have to tell you, your staff, OCWB, extraordinary. I had the opportunity while our offices were being renovated to be over at the East District Center. And so all of your folks just lift their hand. Woo! Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you for work
Came out strong.
extraordinarily well done. And not just about outputs, but outcomes and then the alignment. So I just want to acknowledge and thank all of the persons. Can't quite see everyone, but extraordinary work. Great for our city, and even more to come. I have more, but I'm going to defer to my council colleague, Councilwoman Robertson, who was instrumental on the front end here.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for this presentation. I too first would like to acknowledge we have several members that serve on the Citizen Advisory Board that meets on a monthly basis with the Office of Community Wealth Building, as well as intervene with other groups that are working with us as it relates to reducing poverty in the city. And I would ask those board members that are here to stand as well, Mr. Mayor, if I may, also ask all of the staff with the Office of Community Wealth Building that is doing such a fabulous job. And Madam President, if we may give them a hand of applause for recognition as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Avula, excuse me, Mayor Avula, we are blessed to have such a large team of people that are so dedicated to this work. And I also want to ask that Williamson to stand as well, please, because Thad was a part of this initiative from the very beginning and really led a lot of the work that was done to pull together such a large team of citizens engagement from the very beginning. I think we worked probably almost 2 years, it felt like, before we actually got to the place that there was an Office of Community Wealth Building. And I want to thank him also because it was your leadership that also suggested that we would do this annual report to really look at the critical matrix as to what we're measuring to ensure that as we move forward, we know how we got there, not just that we got there, but how we got there, and where we want to make sure that we keep those things as matrix to continue to work on. So that, Wilson, thank you very much. Appreciate your leadership that you continue to provide in this area. He's also authored several books. So anyone that wants to know what poverty is really all about, I would so strongly suggested that you speak with Dr. Williamson. Mr. Mayor, lots of work has been done. It's great to have an opportunity to acknowledge the work that has been done and the folk that have worked on this. Helping people is really challenging. Their lives change on a daily basis. Success could be great, and different things happen in all of our lives that makes huge difference. And so the spirit of people first and looking at people holistically is the spirit of the Office of Community Wealth Building. And that's, I think, is really fundamental to the success that has been achieved. And so as we move forward, I would like to say to Mr. Brooks, who's, thank God for him, Mr. Brooks, stand up so people can see you as well. And the other board members stand up, because we really have a great board that really is very dedicated to this work. And a few months ago, maybe all of this year, if not part of last year as well, Mr. Brooks stepped forward to be a co-chair. And I want to thank him, because I'm telling you, without staffing on this side, on council side, to support these commissions, it's a big, big, big lift. And Mr. Brooks has been faithful. He picks up the phone, he calls all of the members of the board on a consistent basis and chat with them, make sure that we are hearing their voices and getting them involved. So Mr. Brooks, as well as Eric, I'd like to thank both of you for your work that you're doing as board members. I'm looking forward, Mr. Mayor, to where we go from here. We are in the process, and I don't have a date yet from Mr. Brooks, but I know that he's working aggressively with your staff to set a date for our annual strategic planning for the board members. Right now, the board members are very interested in making sure that we are fully aware of the strategy of how you and your administration is moving forward with looking at poverty. I know that there are some significant changes that we are entertaining. The board members, like I said, they come every month. It's important to me as the chair and Mr. Brooks as the co-chair that the board is a part of action to support the administration and moving the agenda forward. There are some real concerns that we have as far as the matrix and what we are measuring and what we are looking at. We had hoped and planned to put Dr. Williamson on the spot for our retreat to show up and tell us exactly what the plan is. When I made that request, I will say that your director said, Ellen, that's not something I can do. But if you will speak with the mayor and whether or not that is something that they are ready and prepared to do, it is really important to the board that when we show up for the meetings, that we walk away with action items that we are responsible for doing to be leveraging the work that is being done through your staff as well. And we would love the opportunity to get a little window into a little greater window before we have our retreat as to exactly where we're going and how we want to get there. And also have the board to share some of the matrix that we are really concerned about. We are really concerned about poverty reduction, but we're also concerned about concentration of poverty and making sure that the measurements are measuring those concentrated neighborhoods that we have. As you mentioned with the master plan, we amended the master plan to make sure that all of the public housing communities were considered as primary nodes in our master plan, successfully got that done. However, we want to make sure that our strategy of looking at reductions of poverty, when you spoke of finding where are people of poverty, I mean, the concentration of poverty in the city of Richmond in our public housing community, in my opinion, just automatically raised those neighborhoods to our real concerted effort, not to exclude anyone else that is dealing with poverty, because poverty is painful and it requires some strategic actions to move from where folk that are living in poverty. One of the other concerns that I'm hoping that I'll get a chance to speak with you before the retreat is to talk about the changes that are coming down from the federal government and the drastic impact that it's going to have on families of poverty. The decrease in medical care, insurance and opportunities there, the policies as it relates to inclusion, and a lot of our programmatic policies that are based on factors that we've used successfully to get the bus rapid transit. Mr. Williamson did a lot of work with us on helping us to put that proposal together at the federal level to get a lot of the funding. And it's because of Richmond's poverty level that we got significant scores to fund the bus rapid transit in the city of Richmond. So when those policy changes and when such things as factors that are directly related to poverty at the federal level are getting less weight or not being or being actually eliminated in some cases. Those are some of the big items that we're concerned about, that the city, as you very well know, government is always local government. I mean, at the end of the day, the people are going to knock on our door. And so thank you. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your continued commitment to this great initiative that the city is doing. Let's toot our horn a little bit more often. Let's tell our story a little bit more often. When other cities and other states are bragging on us and wanting to steal our ideas, let's make sure that everybody else know where they stole it from and give our people the acknowledgement, not only the staff and the businesses, but families of poverty themselves. It takes a lot of effort for them to work these initiatives in their schedule and still be obligated to their day-to-day living demands that are so much greater than what most people experience. So I appreciate the work that is being done. Look forward to working with you even closer with, especially with our board, to be a part of our strategy for moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Mayor, and to everyone on the team for all of their efforts to make, I think, good inroads in mitigating the impact of the affordable housing crisis that we find ourselves in. I know it is it's not easy, and has taken a real commitment. I want to understand, as we talk about the poverty rate falling in the city, how specifically we're able to parse out the impact of the work that we're doing kind of separately from the reality of residents being pushed out. And I think we all recognize that people are being pushed out. And, you know, where I think that is felt very acutely is in our schools, where, you know, we've seen average daily membership drop in Richmond Public Schools from about 22,000 students in 2017 to closer to just under 20,000 students today. That's 2,000 students. And, you know, not only does that impact kids, their friends are gone, and the transitions and the impact of that, because these are people that we're talking about, families that are gone. It also has a real sizable impact financially. You know, the funding that we receive from the state is tied to that average daily membership number. And I would estimate that the financial impact covers around $15-16 million a year that we're not receiving as a result of the loss of those students. And 2,000 students equates to, you know, at least 2,000 to 6,000 adult, you know, people total that we're seeing leave. And I know that this is impacting areas of high poverty, because we can see at the school level, enrollment drop at Fairfield Court, enrollment has dropped at Carver. And so the reality that people are being pushed out, I mean, that's just a fact. And so I want to understand more how we are, you know, I guess it gives me pause to celebrate the reduction of the poverty rate when I think that there are forces that are both economic and also that we've contributed to as a city that has exacerbated that situation and has impacted us financially as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, all great points, and I tried to address that reality. Like, it is, from a program monitoring and evaluation standpoint, it's an enormous lift to like do longitudinal tracking, right? So the studies that have done that the best nationally, like Rod Chetty's, you know, upward mobility study, and in the health world, like the Framingham Heart Study, right? They invest millions of dollars in following people over time. I think it's really difficult for us to do that to the degree that we'd want to, like, figure out who's being pushed out versus who's leaving voluntarily. I do think, again, when you look at like the macro data around the region, and we haven't seen, it's not like Richmond's poverty rate has dropped and then the county, like all those people are going to live in the counties and their poverty rates are going up, right? Like everybody's poverty rates are going down. And so, but it's hard to parse out exactly what's going on there. And then what percentage of those people are leaving because, you know, maybe they got a housing voucher and were excited to go to Henrico County, or they really couldn't afford the rent and the, you know, the place in Chester was the place they could afford. And we just don't have great numbers for that. And I think that's where you got to look at, in the big picture, how is poverty being addressed as a region, and can we as a region start to like track that a little bit better? So I think RVA Rising is a part of that solution, because they're interested in more of the regional look at poverty here, but it will take, you know, some more efforts to like actually track individual families and figure out the relative impacts of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would encourage us to expand our definition of region. I mean, I think that we're seeing folks move to Charles City. I mean, people are moving to where they can afford.
Yeah.
And I also think that, you know, the nuance between whether it's by choice or not is probably hard to identify as well. Someone might choose to move because they're able to find, you know, a less, you know, someplace that's more affordable. And it's kind of two sides of the same coin. At the end of the day, they've moved. And, I think that when we even looked at the voter turnout, I mean, we're seeing significant changes in the city. And I think that, I guess, like I said, I appreciate that we are seeing poverty rates go down, but I also recognize the reality that we're in. And I think that we have to, even because of the scale of the issue with affordable housing, we have to expand our scope and seeing where we're seeing folks shift. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Jones?
Thank you, Madam President. Hi. Thank you for your presentation, and just want to applaud all of the OCWB staff and all the work that they're doing. And I have questions, but my main point I think that I want to really lift up here is the systems element of what you added to the presentation. When you put it up there, my eyes was like, wow, it's like 25 internal organizations that you noted that are connected to OCWB. And as someone working in a particular office trying to reach goals and metrics and all those things that were named, but you have 25 offices that are also external and are not as connected. I guess my question is, what is the plan or the strategy to ensure, and I've always said, we're speaking the same language and that we're moving in the direction of really attempting to reduce poverty? Because when you think of the systems, right, that are, I would say, exempt from the hub, which is OCWB, we move then into like poverty management, and we're managing it because there's so many different. So I would really love, and it doesn't have to be today, but I would really love to hear more about what is the strategy to get these offices connected, because to your point, we are touching the same families, but we're touching them over and over and over and over. And so not only when we think about reducing poverty, we're also increasing, right, some of the root causes that are affecting the issues that these families serve. And so I'm really more interested in the systems approach on how we're going to really, like, I'm not saying that anybody is not doing the work. I know these folks are working and they are doing it. We are partnering with them, but the system is not working. And so we need to really recognize where we are falling short. And I also want to look at that relative to budget, to how we are implementing or allocating funding, specifically if OCWB is the hub. Like, I want to be able to see in terms of what that looks like, apples to apples, staff to staff, across the organization, so that we can get on a systems and really start driving, because our numbers could be very higher if we get on rowing in the same direction. So I'm very interested in how we are going to tackle this. This is a system issue. So no matter, the work is amazing, and for what we've been able to accomplish. And even while my colleague was speaking, I'm like, I want to be on the board, but like, for the work that they're doing. But I mean, honestly, I really want us to really focus on the way that we really do this. And to what my colleague, Ms. Gibson, was saying, is really tackling it from a systems approach, and then the multi-pronged, faceted. It's really deep and it's complex, but I would just really want to dig more into that.
Yeah, all great points. And I really want to applaud Director Spellman's leadership in really like building out the systems part of the OCWB structure, and the team that she's building, the focus on policy. I think if you want to answer it now, I think there will be opportunities, perhaps when we present to the Community Wealth Building Board, or really, I would be happy to just present to you, Ms. Jones. We'd be happy to do that. So anything you want to say to systems work right now? Or either one?
Yeah. Good afternoon. Capricia Spellman. Director of Office Community Wealth Building. I just want to add that the coordination piece is exactly what we're working on. As we build out this piece, we have a results management position that we're bringing on board to head just that portion. The coordination has been a statutory limitation that we haven't been able to meet. And here we find that this administration has given us the liberty to be able to build that portion of the portfolio out. What we've found is that in our policy work, we've found those holes. And so being able to plug those gaps has been a strength of ours. We've been working with our neighboring portfolio leads in our DCAOs. And so our DCAO, Popovich, has brought us the strength to be able to build those relationships with our other portfolios, bringing that strength to bear, now being able to work with other departments who also have these, the bandwidth to be able to build those gaps. We've already worked with the Office of Sustainability, our Economic Development portfolio. We're already working with the Office of Minority Business and Business Development. And so we're already starting to bridge some of those gaps more at the grassroots level. Now having the DCAO support, we've been able to do that at a larger scale. So you'll begin to see a lot more of that coordination work happen a little bit larger, so you'll have a larger footprint moving forward. Yes, ma'am.
And there are times where, we absolutely can and must do better coordination among the programs the city is running. I gave a couple examples around sort of housing and childcare, because we know that for folks living in poverty, it's all of the social determinants that are impeding progress in many ways. There are times like the federal regulations around DSS where, it might be harder to really line up all of the supports. But I think we can do much more than we historically have been doing. And I think the team is starting to build that muscle to do cross referrals and to really think as a team about how we support somebody on this journey out of poverty.
Mayor, again, I want to say thank you. Thank you to all of the staff, the board members. Incredible work. We still know there's work to be done. I've seen the beginnings of the building, simplistically referred to as stringing the pearls, but critically significant in terms of allowing us to coordinate, to see where the gaps are, to see where there's duplication, so that we can get to the systemic components that are referenced and costs, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you. I see where we've been, I see where we are, and I see the path you are mapping out for us, and we're all in. I would say, based on the questions at some point, that you would deem readiness to come back to OD to share with us just where we are in that progression. But just want to say thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
All
really
of
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Members, with that concludes our agenda for the informal meeting. This meeting now stands adjourned.